Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, Mrs. Steve won't be with us tonight, of course, but she's unpacking some more stuff as we move. But I want to welcome everyone. What will happen is we'll have a presentation, and during that presentation, if you have any questions, absolutely throw them in the chat. And while you're in chat and you're new to the channel, have respect for families, mods, and each other. Tonight, we're going to be looking at something that I spent a large part of my career as far as working in, and that's the CSI world. I saw the transition of understanding of how crime scenes are to be processed, interpreted, and looking at evidence and analyzing and coming up with how the interactions of the victim and offenders and injuries, blood spatter, and the stories that are told at crime scenes. And that's something we're going to look at that's been brought up, especially in the this last week with the hearings. And I was extremely interested when it popped up that there was a CSI expert that was brought to the stand that testified. And this is a huge part of the case. And it will answer a lot of questions, and is also going to be a giant hill for the defense. The defense made certain storylines, and regardless that if they follow along through the path of whoever the offender is, that the characteristics of the blood pattern analysis doesn't change if it's one offender or two offenders or whatever, or five offenders. But tonight we're going to be looking at mostly everything to do with some of the thoughts that were given to the court through testimony of this expert blood spatter instructor analysis that he conducted as being called to analyze a lot of evidence. And that's very important. But before we get into that, if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement has it, for the fact that as the court systems proceed in trying to find justice for Abby and Libby, they have to have all the information. So if you have any information, absolutely make sure that you provide that to the appropriate authorities, attorneys, regardless if it's prosecution or defense, for the fact they have to have all the information. Well, as we get into it and we find that they bring in this individual here, Cicero, looked him up, absolutely impeccable resume, been in it, done it, seen it, and we're going to be looking at some of the things of why they brought in such an individual as this. And they brought him in to analyze and basically to tie everything together, for the fact that when we get to court, you know, while there's a lot of CSI guys out there and everybody has specialized fields and we have understandings of what occurs at crime scenes, you need a top-notch individual that has been in the seat as an expert, has testified before. And this guy here, as you read his resume, that he absolutely is a graduate of general studies, social and behavioral science, which is huge. And he's a vet, and also he's an instructor at the National Forensic Academy at the University of Tennessee, and Body Farm, which I absolutely missed the opportunity to go. I had that if I stayed on, I probably would have had the opportunity to travel there and participate. Now, this was probably prior to him, of course, because he was still in school in the late 90s. And I had already been into the CSI world about, at that time, probably close to 8 years. And so he came along later, but absolutely, you can look at everything that this individual knows. And he's been in law enforcement for 25 years now, and has been training new investigators for the last 20 years. And he instructs on crime scenes, investigative approach and management of crime scenes. He's a forensic expert with bloodstain pattern analysis, and he still works in law enforcement, and which is all huge. And so that when they brought him on board to look at the evidence, it's a huge step. And there's a lot of things that have to be considered, and there's a lot of things that your credentials have to prepare you for. Have I seen thousands and thousands of photos of crime scenes, and have we reconstructed crime scenes? If for those of you that have been with me a while, you've seen some of the work that I've done, and that's through my training. And it's through the training such as what I had and what he's had and what he continues, and he passes it along to others. Absolutely critical that this is done for future generations. And there's no surprises in the world of crime scene analysis. We look at the evidence that's there, and it leads us down a path, and we have to read that evidence and follow that evidence to wherever it leads. And it's not that we create some narrative and try to make the crime scene fit our narrative. That we take the crime scene, analyze it, break it down. It tells us what happened at that scene, and that's what we can testify to. Now, the information I have is from notes that were given to me, research that I've done online, some of the testimony that was out there this week. There's several great channels out there that have information about it. Go out there, research it. I'm going to give you highlights of some of the things that occurred, but as an expert, and you can say, well, he wasn't there at the time. Well, when documentation of a crime scene is critical. And law enforcement, from the moment they arrive, they understand it now, that through the technologies that are now present in law enforcement, from 3D imaging to photographs to the collection, diagrams, recordings, anything that you can imagine, that because I came along before a lot of this technology existed. We had cameras and we had markers and we had a lot of paper. And so we didn't have all the things that the newer generations of law enforcement have, but and where we're heading in a few years is absolutely in the sci-fi world of technologies and what our juries and will be able to witness at crime scenes as it comes through and the advancements. Because like I said, I came along even as DNA was just then being part of the chain of evidence that could be presented into court. And it wasn't fully understood, and it was new, and there's a lot of things that come along. But anyway, some of the key points of analysis that he was able to look at was the crime scene photographs, the reports, lab reports, diagrams that would have been drawn out and created, autopsy photographs, the crime scene, traveling to the crime scene, boots on the ground, absolutely are critical. Taking those images with you and understanding, having that diagram, going out there, marking it. And as some of you that have seen some of the things that I have done, you understand that this is testing that I do, and he did also. Looking at the items of evidence, weighing it, feeling it, seeing it, and understanding how each of those blood patterns were transferred or got in those positions through either gravity or some type of struggle or some type of placement. and looking at the clothing. But one of the things that really got me in the world of law enforcement and our dark humor and everything else is I hear that when he was asked, had he ever dealt with anyone being buried, his comment was that, he's buried bodies and digs them up at Tennessee, as doing it as the work that he is given to pass along his knowledge and also to understand new things that occur with humans in these outdoor environments from the time that the crimes first occur to later on. Let me see. Before I get too far behind the chat, let me go over here and take care of that, and we'll move right along, guys. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We got Marion and James Tate. Good to see you. Skullified. Olivia, too. Excellent. And there's the Saint. Big Bird. Hello, Jill. Solar Chef. Good to see you. Phil Bond. Drunk Turkey Show. How you doing tonight? Glad you're here. Ziggy. Hello. Sensei Stacy. Yvette. Rob Lee. Hello. Hello, Brandon. Let's see. There's some key points that we're going to be looking at that from analyzing everything from what we just read off, the photographs, reports, the diagrams, autopsies, and understanding. And he probably, spoke with a lot more and, other than just what we have right here. Speaking to the coroner or medical examiner, speaking to officers that were on the scene. He has a great understanding of what went on there. When we get into the trial, we'll have even a better understanding when we see these individuals as the steps that were taken and as the items were processed and the photographs were taken and in the process of memorializing that crime scene. For the fact that when CSI gets there and after law enforcement responds and they secure it, everything you do at that crime scene enables you that if you had to go back and recreate that crime scene, you can do so. You can go back there and take mannequins or those images and position everything as close as possible as what it was when you first arrived. And that's the whole gist of what we should be doing is that at any point that we can go back and take our measurements and place them back in the proper positions. While you may not have ever blood droplet or anything, but you would have all the of what you found at that scene from certain key points, such as the F tree or the upside down L is being referenced to, the pools of blood that, of course, the defense at one point was talking about lack of blood, whereas with this expert, we see another side from his testimony that there were passive pools of blood located in this crime scene, which is what you would expect. And every CSI guy, when we go to these scenes, we have understanding. We know that if certain types of instruments or weapons are used, certain patterns occur. Is it going to be from cast off, or is it going to be from edged weapons? Is it going to be from gunshot injuries? And because all the blood spatter that we look at, all of it has a fingerprint or that identifies the characteristics of what would cause certain patterns. And now, of course, these are his opinions. He's an expert. And of course, there will be other experts that can come there and they may see and give different opinions about certain characteristics of some of the blood scene or the blood pattern analysis. Like he, as we'll get into it, about how he described that the blood pattern of the F tree could then have created by a certain position of the hand. Whereas if you look at mine, I had another, which I was just going from what limited information I had. He has far greater details and far more images and photographs, and able to talk to the people that were there that would give him a clearer definition and a clearer understanding of what exactly that so-called F tree at the time looked like. And so working from what I had and what he has, two different things. But I was glad to see that he also believes that it's some type of hand transfer, which is I do. Hello, Jacqueline. Hello, Louise. SP74. Let's see here. Hello, Stacy. Hello, Ben. See through. State or defense bringing him in? State, from my understanding. Hello, Fire and Ice. DP. Hello, Sharon. Good to see you. Cryptex. Sally Sleuth has been a member for 4 months. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Says, thank you for all you do, Mr. Steve. Thank you. Jackman says, I'm interested in the it's blood spatter evidence versus splatter. That's a common misspelling that occurs in saying, but it's spatter. But yes, absolutely. This is something that all the CSI world in certain areas that we absolutely, that tells so much about the movement and some of the findings that he had there, as we'll look at here, that he was able to go out and through these images and visiting the scene, see where the blood pools were, the leaf litter that had blood stains, the blood stain on the tree, the upside down L-shaped transfer. And he also noted different blood patterns, transfers and droplets. And you can have cast off. You can have just gravity passive blood drops also that can occur from injuries as people may move through a scene that have an injury on their hand or otherwise, or they lean up against something and you'll have droplets and you can have transfer. And he also noted that there was some mobility by Libby as far as that she was upright and standing, and due to the fact that there were some stains on the bottom of her feet. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can get stains on different parts of your body, even on the bottom of the feet. That's not always from just walking. It can be another transfer during a fight. It could be that you raise your leg, you're on your back, and you stick your foot in a pool as you are drugged. There's a lot of different ways, but like I said, he has all the images, he has all the data, and the only reason I state certain things like this is that a lot of people are going to read into that only certain things occurred, and that can only occur in one manner. That's not always, like I said, there's a lot of chaos at scenes, and there's a lot of variables that occur of how blood can be transferred, and we have that, whereas experts will get and we discuss and what are the likely movements of a crime scene. And of course, he'll have that, and that will come out more in court when we have more images and a better understanding of what that scene layout was. I also noted at one point Libby was in a sitting position sometime during that encounter. He noted about Abby's hands and sweatshirt that there was no blood, but that other upper clothing was saturated with blood, and that the limbs, in his opinion, was used to conceal, which all of this is huge information, guys. Because the defense is going that certain things occurred and that it was some type of ritual sacrifice. And do I think there was a ritual there? I still do. The placement of the limbs means something for someone, because that took some time. Was it just to conceal the victims? We're just going to have to see. Was he interrupted in the covering of the victims, and he had placed the limbs, was about to take it to the next level when he was disturbed? That's also very possible. We just have to see. Let me get back in here. I got to talk back up. Oops. Get this here Google machine working. All right. Let's see what else. Hello, Gail. Good to see you. Sharon says, I have read Patricia's Cornwell's novel, Body Farm. And it's absolutely, like I said, what they have been able to do with the scientific studies of persons that donate their bodies to science absolutely has cleared up a lot and has driven the world into another era of understanding crime scenes. It's so vital. Oops. Let's see here. Marion Tate says, Barbara Hall says hello to everyone too, and thank you for all you do for your families and our loved ones. Absolutely. If you don't know who Barbara Hall is, she is the mother of Timmy Dees. Look up that case and you will understand her fight for justice. Hello, Texas Ranger. Gail Hurd has gifted one True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hello, Peggy. Roxy, hello. SP74, what a contrast between Major Cicero and the defense expert. And you'll see this, and we'll have to see where it goes as far as every expert that's brought into it, because there's going to be a lot of other experts, from the firearms expert, from the spent round, and you'll have also people that's in the medical field that's going to be experts on mental status and things of that nature. Gail, another membership. Thank you. I can get my blue light off there. Appreciate that. Witchcraft. Salty Sleuth is driving and listening. Glad to have you here. And as always, Jacqueline, you're absolutely correct. Everything that's being done is for justice for Abby and Libby, and what they were able, what Libby did that day as far as capturing the images, and from the mobility and the fight, that we understand that there was a struggle at the crime scene. She did that, trying to save her and Abby's life. And absolutely align this, and it should be so much that other families can go out there and show the dangers to other children, and how to avoid, and it's a lesson in life for about catfishing. So there's so much out there. Let's see. Robert Lee says Cicero's testimony should put to rest rumors that the violence happened somewhere beside the known crime scene. Absolutely, and that's the thing that we had so much information about, and this settles a lot of that debate, because until this testimony, we were still unclear, was there another crime scene somewhere else? Now we know that the crime scene of the abduction is absolutely at the bridge. And now, could they be somewhere else? As we traveled here, and they only covered the part of the actual where they met their demise and the homicides occurred, because we still have all the area between the abduction point and this point that is part of the crime scene, and that will be analyzed and understood and discussed at some point in court. Gail, gifted another True Crime Web membership. You're on a roll tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, CJK. Tech Death Hippie, good to see you. Thank you, CJK. Like I said, you could probably go across the country, and there's hundreds and thousands of people that are trained CSI individuals with different levels of training. I bow down to this individual here that, you know, he works at one of the most revered institutes in the country as far as the body farm. And so absolutely it's something that we all have to say that he knows what he's talking about, and it should be considered. Hello, Lori Sutherland. Good to see you. Mark Ferris. Uh-oh. Gail. Gifted another True Crown Web membership. Thank you. Let's see here. Witchcraft is listening, crocheting. Excellent. Keep an eye peeled. You having a bad storm there? Stay safe out there. Keep track of that storm. James Tate, Mr. Steve, have you ever been to a bad crime scene in your career? Just asking. Yes. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of victims. Some of them natural, some of them violent crime scenes, some of them, of course, self-inflicted, you know, and then, of course, during your training, you see thousands and thousands of victims. So through the processing of all the crime scenes that I've personally had to go and process, and the deaths and the homicides, and trying to determine, is it something that is, because you have to look at all these deaths, because not all deaths are homicides. But when you get there, you have to determine, is it a natural death? Is it self-harm? Is it, you know, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different reasons that persons pass. And it's not always a homicide, but you have to make sure and that it's not a homicide and it's one of the others, because there's some people out there that can absolutely cloudy the issue or cloud up the issue so you can't tell. Alexa, good to see you again. Glad you're here. All right. But this expert, as we see what in the CSI world, I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one. This man, like I said, he does his test. He uses his own blood, not an issue. I use the synthetic because I'm not going to let, I don't have all the tubes, and really would Miss Steve stop filling tubes on me. And so, but he did that due to the pressures of the timeline that he had to react on as we move forward with this, because he just started not long ago. And so, but he did draw his own blood and was able to go out there and do a lot of testing with it, from handprint, thumbprints, transfers, painting, to understand the markings on those trees, the transfers on those trees, the pooling, to what the soil is and what the gravity would feed on those tree surfaces. And it's all critical information. Skullify says, at work, can't chat much, but can hear you. Good. Glad to see you. That's great, guys. Welcome, Alexa. Like I said, she is a professional, and absolutely is something that you should respect her knowledge. Jacqueline says that you saw the YouTube on the F tree. Very well done. And like I said, I went from the thumb, palm, which if you looked at that, that's the L, but it's not upside down L. And which way is it with him? For whatever reason, he has far more accurate, and he had the images enhanced with the crystal violet, whereas the images I had, not. All I can see is faint images of what droplets and the transfers and the description to go off of. But he would have had firsthand knowledge of those that had seen it. Witchcraft. Mr. Steve, do you ever miss the work having access to all the information instead of just some of it? Absolutely. Because a lot of the code cases that we look at, I'm having to deal with the information only obtained that's given to me by the families and through the open records that they've requested from it. Because working, there's not a lot of work I can do with law enforcement for the fact that if I start working hand in hand with them, it does create certain issues as far as accessibility, because I do not wish to become an agent of the state and create certain things that could be suppressed if argued that I was just a agent working for law enforcement. Miranda Lee, thanks to Steve and True Crime Web. This is my favorite channel. Thank you. Appreciate it. Very kind of you. You've been a member for 17 months. Thank you. And Junior, you're absolutely correct. That it appears that Abby, passed relatively quickly. Not so much for Libby. Skullified. So if it was him alone, do you think it could be almost like Lyric and Elizabeth not wanting to leave each other behind with a bad guy, or did they find a second person involved? If it's him alone, of course, a lone wolf was, and like I said, we don't know all the movements of what happened at that crime scene chaos and how they got into the clothing, the changing, and the full movement of it, and where the blood pools were, what type of injuries in great detail. We just don't know those yet. Could one person do this? Obviously, if we look at other cases of where individuals have been able to overcome multiple victims, so it can be. So we just have to see. But everything that I've heard or read so far from this crime scene expert, that it's just got a text message, but it does lean towards that we don't have anything currently that I'm aware of. There may be some testimony out there I'm unaware of currently that says there's more than one, but right now, everything I saw as far as the transfer and speaking of, it's all been singular. Clever. Hello, all. Interesting to hear you say there was a ritual. Can you back up a minute and explain that again? Thanks. When I look at the sticks, and especially if we have one stick that's cut, that takes time. The placements of the sticks occurred after they're unable to move, death, ever how you want to look at it. And the placement of the sticks, and while this expert says that he believes they were placed there for concealment. Is that possible? Absolutely. But the placing of them and each of them and not covering for the fact that I've went out there, I placed sticks and as similar to what they were. And then I was able to cover them up with leaves, and they weren't covered with leaves. If you just wanting to cover them up, and this is just my personal opinion, shooting it out there, that if you was just wanting to cover them up or disguise them, there's plenty of leaf debris there. And I'll show you some of the, if you go back to some other videos. But what, in my opinion, and like I said, I believe that the placement of those sticks serves some purpose in his mind, because like I said, there's plenty of sticks laying around up there. If you watch any of my videos in woodland, there's sticks everywhere. I've been all across this country working cold cases, and everywhere I go, especially either in creeks or any area that's woodland, there's plenty of debris around where you can easily break up the outline of a human. So I believe that the sticks are placed there for some type of ritual in his mind. What that is, I have no idea. But there is a placement that, you know, we weren't rushed, and it was something that didn't have to be done, but he did, for the fact that if he was just there to commit homicides, or was there for whatever his motive was, if it is XA due to the nudity, that's, in my opinion, what's going on. But that it's simple, you know, that you either commit homicides and just walk away, or you throw leaves on them. But the placing of those sticks, if that's all that was done and it was in that manner, I do believe it's a ritual. It could be self-serving. Only he understands what the placement means. Doesn't mean that it has to be some pagan type of ritual. It just serves his fantasy. FarQ says, my body's going to science. Sensei has been a member for 20 months. Waffle House, thank you for all you do, Steve and Mrs. Steve. Thank you for being a member for 20 months. Junior Johnson's got to go. Appreciate you stopping by. Peyton Place, hello, how are you? Peggy says her body is donated to science too. Excellent. Mary Flint, hello. Boston Christian. All right. Let's see before we get too much farther. This is the crime scene, and as you can see here, there's sticks everywhere. So what was the process and what was the reasoning behind if that one stick that in the images that were provided to me, and if it was cut? I know the defense made reference that there was a cut limb, and is that true? But just from this image here, you can look through this crime scene here, and how many sticks do you see? How many limbs do you see? And so it's not hard to recover those limbs, take them there, and you can also see the leaf debris that's in this crime scene. Now, the area where I did the testing, this is on my property in Georgia. It's very similar as far as the sticks laying around and the leaf debris. And like I said, if you watch any of my crime scene photos or crime scene recreations from dragging Mrs. Steve through the woods, and also of covering up mannequins in the wood line, such as what could have occurred there. But then that's why I chose this recreation, because like I said, the forest and all in this type of landscape, it's not hard to find fallen dead trees with limbs of varying sizes. Lori says, can the medical profession tell the jury what meds the prisoner is on so they can have an idea of what could be wrong with a prisoner, like a mental illness or a psychopath? I don't know how that will be brought into the courts, but there will be a phase of the trial where if it's allowed, they'll have hearings about his conditions. Is it going to be brought in due to why he may make certain statements, incriminating or confessions? If those go in, or is he mentally fit with those medications? There's a lot of different ways that could possibly be brought into there. That'll be up to the judge and to the attorneys as they move forward with the case. Great question. Jackson said, I wish you were the expert for the trial, Steve. No, they've got someone that's far, far more experienced than I. Oops. Also in this testimony and some of the things that was referenced, they were talking about gravity flows. And these are things that I created months before we had any of this testimony. Whenever I was going out and trying to show what any responding CSI guy at the crime scene would be looking for, that you're going to be looking for tree stains, where if you have a victim that is upright, moving, they have injuries, they're going to be leaning against these trees, they're going to be touching these trees, they're going to be creating transfers, there's going to be blood flow, there can be arterial spurts, and there can be blood stains and blood spatter on the leafy debris underfoot. And it's no ifs, ands, or issues about if certain things occurred at a crime scene, you're going to have this. Doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. And so the CSI world, we all go and we go look for it and we find it. And I was able to do this before we had all the information. I think I even had this maybe before the F tree. I can't remember, but it was things that I started doing this a year and a half ago, some of the testing as far as some of the information that we had about the crime scene. Lori Sutherland, 199. Thank you. Appreciate your support. About to go on the road in a couple of weeks on, well, probably about a week now. Have some developments I need to go take care of. Sensei gifted 1 True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see. It was just sent to me that Gail Hurd's birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday, or happy birthday. There's 7 body farms in different regions in the United States. It's not just one. Yes, but back in my day when I first started, that was it. Tennessee was the only one at that time. But I think they're popping up, like you said, in multiple regions. But the original body farm for my generation, when I first started getting in CSI and what was occurring was Tennessee. Yeah, there's probably more than 7 body farms now. I think Georgia even has 1 or 2 that's popped up. CJK, it's a bit odd that some were discounting what the CSI guy said in his testimony. I think it just didn't fit in what they want these crimes to be. I agree that if it doesn't fit, and that's where you have to be, that if people have a narrative and they're trying to take the evidence and fit their narrative, that's where it's messed up. Whereas if you take the evidence that's at the crime scene and you can give it the basis of how it occurred, and we have injuries that are consistent, we have storyline that is consistent, and the evidence puts you down a trail of movement, of injuries, of pooling, of cast off, of blood spatter, be it from impacts, that all of that is identifiable. And those, and it's something that tells a story. And when you look at it, certain people is going to say, "Oh, that you can't tell anything from that." Well, you take the CSI experts and let them tell you the story, and we'll see where it goes with it. The defense will bring in an expert, and I look forward to hearing his story. Texas Ranger, good to see you. Gail says, is everything okay in Florida? Yes, there were some areas that got a little bit of flooding, but where we're at right now, we're in good shape. Yes, I see monsters. Thank you for speaking to Miranda. Yes, it is a terrible thing to lose a loved one. Hello, Elevate the Process. Thank you, James Tate. Very kind of you. CJK, I can't believe people still think there's a rune on the tree. I've never thought it was a rune on the tree. I just thought it was a hand transfer. I had a different explanation, but I did include the thumb. And of course, we have where from some of the testimony, there's certain types of blood spatter noted on the leaf debris. And this is some of the things I did way back when in preparation of what we would expect to find on an outdoor crime scene. And over on the right, I had something about some type of blood that was moving. I'll have to go back into my files and see what's on that side. I just pulled this from one of my presentations, but so that you can see. And then also I understand the expert was talking about that in his recreation, and giving reasons of why he believed it was from a hand transfer about the roundness of a blood stain. And this is from a partial print. It's from my thumb. And I had done this whenever I was doing different interpretations of what, when certain surfaces come in contact with a receptive surface that will receive a transfer, and it can be anything, but he made note that it was rounded, and that's how come I included this slide so that you can see that a bloody finger, and this is with synthetic blood, will transfer, and you'll have that roundness, and it gives you some clarity of what he is stating when he's looking at that scene, and he looks at that tree, and he sees that impression, and he sees another impression the inch and a half away from it that has that roundness to it. And what is it? Is it this or something close to that? And like I said, this is a CSI world. This is what we go out and do. It's what we test. This is what we have understandings of. And this was created. I think I actually created this. I can't remember if I created this for Richard Allen or for Koberger, but regardless, it all is the same. Mustang 65, good to see you. Truth Exposed. Hello, Nana. Trying to get caught up here. Yes, Mary Flynn. Happy birthday tomorrow for Gail. Olivia too. Hello, sweetie. Says to Gail. Did RA confess saying he used a box cutter? There was something implied in there about some type of box cutter. I do not know. That would be Claire up at some point in the future. I've heard conflicting statements, so I don't know. Bamasin, good to see you. If you have any questions about the crime scene stuff, I hope that some of this information has cleared you and or cleared up some of those issues. Sensei, $2. Happy birthday wishes for Gilbert. Thank you. Appreciate your support and your will, and happy wishes for Gail. Cecil Hotel, good to see you. If this was SA motivation, don't you think maybe RA made them undressed, then he felt bad and dressed her? No. This individual is a monster and has no reasons, that when we're dealing with someone of this level of evil, regardless of who the offender is, it has nothing to do about how he felt towards those victims. He had 2 victims. And so that's just my personal opinion. I just don't give any type of humanity or, some officers may try to say that they think that someone may have some morals left. I'm not really in that camp. And I agree with Jacqueline. I believe that Libby put up a heck of a fight. Absolutely. True Crime, have you heard from Southern Gal? She started creating some more content, so she's out there. Texas Ranger says he probably got paranoid. Yes, there's a clock, regardless of the offender. Doesn't matter if it's Ted Bundy, BTK, whatever. These offenders, when they start that, and they only, they commit these crimes, and they have to have absolute control. If they start losing control or time gets away from them, certain things, the longer you're with a victim, the more likely you are to be caught, because people are going to start missing them. And you don't know their full schedule, regardless of how much you may have stalked or followed someone or have set up anything. You don't know their timeline, and you know that people can start showing up, and you only have a limited window of opportunity. So there are certain pressures put upon even the criminals. Elevate says, I thought the way the sticks were placed seemed low as he considered starting a fire, but would cause too much attention. No, I don't believe so, but, only the offender will be able to tell us exactly what the process. Alexis says, I agree, Mr. Steve, regarding the placements of the sticks. I always believe RA used them for a personal purpose. And that's what I'm saying. We're talking about individuals that he did something extra. Homicides or assaults, SAs, whatever, is one thing. But when you go to doing something that has absolutely no purpose, there's, was he going to use the sticks and then leaves to cover them up? I don't know. But only he would be able to explain that. Gail Hurd, my goodness, thank you all so much. $2. Thank you for your support, Gail. Thank you for all the memberships. Miss Cyrene, Teresa the Troll. Hey, Steve and everybody, I'm late, but I made it. No, you're not late. Does Mr. Steve have a new hairdo? No, actually, Mrs. Steve's going to give me my old hairdo back. It's just growed out. I've been so busy, haven't had time to get a haircut. That will be corrected in the next 24 hours. SP74, Libby's dad would have been calling and texting her phone about the time he was preparing to leave the scene. that could have interrupted his concealing or undoing. Sure, that he knows someone's looking for him. Don't know. Here we go. I don't see Mr. Steve drinking any coffee. I got so many people in chat trying to get off, stay up with the questions. But I work for coffee. I love my coffee. Good coffee. It's cooled off quite a bit. It's not hot anymore. Miranda Lee says, true crime was someone sent me a news article from the 70s where my dad confiscated a huge amount of marijuana from a farm. There's a picture of him with the article. Send that to me, steve@truecrimeweb.com. I'll keep it between us, but I appreciate it. I never can say this enough. Justice for Abby and Libby. Absolutely. James Tate. At True Crime Web, dragging Mrs. Steve may have been used by LE. It was said Libby was dragged 6 or 7 feet. Yes, I drug Mrs. Steve, I believe it was 25 feet. And actually, you'll see here in just a moment, this is some blood spatter that in daylight, that if you look at the leaves, that this is what it looks like in daylight. You can take that blood spatter at night, and I treated mine with luminol, and this is what it looked like at night. But also, this is the back of Mrs. Steve's Tyvek suit when I drug her through the woods. You can see some of the discoloration and the drag marks that's on the back of the Tyvek. Some of the testimony by the witness, Cicero, was about, you could tell that she had been drugged through a pool of blood. And of course, it's been far more pronounced than what we see here. But you can still see the markings and the dragging and the directions. Okay, Ames, good to see you. Scullify, who was your very first victim and first case? Oh, goodness, I couldn't tell you the name. Actually, I probably can't tell you the which ones were, for the fact that we're talking about a long time ago. And we can compartmentalize. We see so many images of death through our training and through our actions and our work that you know, and I don't dream or anything. They don't come to me or anything other than if I pull out one of my murder books or look at a certain case file or article, they all, you know, they're out there. I guess it's just the way that through our training that we just learn to deal with it. I don't know. That, and as we get older, our memory's not what they once were. Lynn says, "Why is the defense going? What is the defense going to do when the prosecution shows the evidence? Richard Allen's alibi, cell phone. They're always the defense will have a plan of action. They're going to cross-examine. They already know what evidence is going to be presented by the state. They have that in discovery, and they'll be prepared, and they'll have their own field of experts to questions and make sure that, and they'll be able to present." That no, this isn't how that occurred. This is how that occurred. And it's up to the jury to decide who they will believe. Is it going to be the defense or the prosecution's experts? Yes. Joe Smo, defender. Have you ever seen bodies buried? Major Sierra. I bury bodies and dig them up. Like I said, in the dark humor of things, this absolutely is a statement of statements of, you know, this all in the for science, and that this has to occur, and individuals are out there doing this, and they have to do it, and it's absolutely amazing work, and kudos to him. Cryptics. What is your opinion about the time of death? Time of death, or and more accurately, time since death, of when you get there, because a lot of things start occurring. You have all the mortises. You know, you can go up there and look up all the mortises, the rigor, the liver, and of what happens with victims from the digestion of food and other things. And even from the drying stages of blood, there's a lot of things that can tell you about the time since death. And so I have no idea of other than there was some references made that from, I think it was Doug Carter, everything was over, I think he said 2:30 or 3:30, somewhere around then, 2:30 to 3:30 or some timeline like that, that everything was over. And so I would probably agree that somewhere around 3:30 being the latest that something like that would have occurred. Steve, how long does it take for a body to decomp in Florida during August? Oh, let me tell you. And there's so many things and so many variables that we have to look at. You have to look at insects, animals, predators, humidity, heat, water or not. I mean, there's a lot of things. The body starts decomping at moment of death. Things start happening. Chemical reactions start, and there's so much of it. But there's some videos out there of where some testing was done, even on deer, and you'll see that you'd be amazed at how fast some animals are able to assist in the removal of a corpse in an extremely quick timeline. I thought it was RA's handprint. Could be. It's a handprint. And it could be from a absolutely saturated hand from the offender or from a victim. Did you look at my friend's case, Rihanna Olsen's triple homicide, or looking to? I think I'll look down for a moment, but I've got so many cases going on right now. I haven't been able to follow up on any of that right now. True Crime Web. I thought the FBI determined the sticks and leaves on the girls were done for the purpose of concealment. I don't know. That may be, like I said, I can only state my opinions, and it may be in a report out there that they may have reached that conclusion. But until I see that report and what they base those facts on, I don't know. Joe Smo said, I did find it odd that Major Cicero used his own blood in his experiment in the woods. Maybe even bizarre. Like I said, I just choose to use the synthetic blood. But but he wanted to use human blood, or he didn't have animal blood. That's what we were trained on. We used animal blood, not human, but it was blood, and so he chose to use his own. Each their own. Bernie says, how far was the blade tree from Libby's body? Was she dragged? I think she was right next to a tree. And from what has been explained, even from her arm positioning, was in a position of being dragged or being used for dragging, that yes, she had been dragged. And this is a good point. Mark, it says, if Allen is a offender, there has to be something in his past that ties into staging at the crime scene. He doesn't seem like a deep thinker. Who knows? Each of these individuals are fed by, and I did a show talking about it. A lot of people have a lot of dark secrets, and we don't know all those dark secrets. Every individual out there has secrets. And some of them are extremely disturbing. Mary says, hugs to Mrs. Steve. Absolutely. She works hard. Ari did not redress Abby, from my understanding. Is that your understanding of true crime? There was some type of another layer of clothing. Some of her clothing was saturated and some was not. So there had to be some interaction. How do you explain it? When was it put on? And we'll just have to let them explain to us how that occurred. I find it hard to believe they weren't SA'd, even though they claim the autopsy report says they weren't. There's a lot of different ways of what happens in the mind of offender, even during SAs. There's not always that it has to be physical contact. Joe says that after hearing Major testimony on Thursday about the injuries of Abby and especially Libby sustained, I'd have to agree. This was done by a monster. Absolutely. Yes, Gail, this is absolutely, at what point and what do you see? And, I've seen a lot of victims that have fought to the bitter end. Beyond the evidence, good to see you. Sharon, good to see you. Nevada Tan. Nevada says, oops, typo, symbolic reversal. I couldn't figure out what that reversal was up there. Beyond the evidence says, could he have been interrupted and couldn't finish covering on? Absolutely. That could have been one of the things. As I've said, that when I was there at the crime scene at one point, the neighbors came home driving up the driveway. You could hear the vehicle approaching a lot longer than seeing the vehicle on that roadway. But then they stopped and they looked right at us. It's a clear line of view from the crime scene to where we were at. But yes, he could have been interrupted. James says, Mr. Steve, I think you got lucky. Police didn't show up and start asking questions when he was dragging her through. I think he did get lucky. Or if you're talking about Mrs. Steve, my neighbors didn't call. But yes, either way, he was lucky that law enforcement didn't. Drunk turkey. So based on the sticks, do you think that specific location, Logan's property, was the spot, meaning he didn't chase him there from a botched kidnapping, etc.? No, I don't know. Going to the scene and seeing that we're in an open location in the middle of daylight, that I think in fight and flight, that at this point, that at some point the girls did take flight, and this is where they got to. They crossed that creek, got up that embankment, and at some point, the offender was able to gain control of at least one of them, and but I do believe that he chased them there. But once the crime was committed, that there were still certain things, that during the SA that is feeding his fantasy, because this type of offender is living in a world, because that's not what you normally do. Is when you go out on a beautiful day during Thanksgiving or Christmas or any holidays. And in this case, we have Valentine's, that you're on a trail, and this is a time that you're supposed to be with your girlfriend, your loved one, presenting flowers. Doesn't matter what holiday it is, that whatever that holiday is, that you're out there on a trail with a purpose and relaxing. And you just don't, out of nowhere, decide to SA 2 children. He did. And what was that reason? Was he targeting them? How long had he been targeting them? What was the trigger for that Valentine's Day to occur? Just don't know. But there's something that triggered him. Yes, the girls are abducted around 2:10, right after whenever the video started. Yes, and then it's over by 2:30, 3:30, 4 o'clock, whenever all the witnesses. But yes, I agree. See-through. Do you think the phone was placed under Abby to muffle the noise from it ringing? I don't know. The placement of that phone, why was it done that way? I don't know. Was it something that was lost during the struggles? Don't know. If Richard Allen was segregated, how was he able to confess 60 plus times? And that's the thing, is that when they're talking about isolation, it's not what we think about the horrors of being in a dungeon or anything. We're talking about a working jail facility. We're talking about cells that you can be in isolation, but there's other isolation cells within feet of that location. There's individuals, there's guards. He had other inmates that were given certain tasks. And so isolation, of him being isolated, yes, he slept alone at night. So, I think in jail setting, that's probably one of the better things that could have occurred to him during those hours of sleep. And of course, people are going to argue that sleep deprivation and all that, but each to their own. But during those waking hours, we're still in a working environment. Inmates have to be supervised, regardless if they're in isolation or otherwise. So it's not what some people are leading you to believe, that he's out there living in a place that no human contact. He has human contact. Man. Oh, Olivia 2's leaving. Hello, Mustang 65. Trying to get caught up. I'm way behind. Thank you, Olivia, for being here. Patsy Klein says, in the heat of August, I would definitely say within 2 weeks or maybe even less. I would agree, in Florida especially. Texas, yeah, you seen the deer video? Yes, it's gone just within days. Aquarium One, hello. Good to see you. I think the reason no time of death on tops is because the girls were refrigerated and they would have to determine death differently than using a thermometer. Is that right? Certain observations, and those observations are going to be coming out. The investigators, people will have touched the bodies, people will check for rigor, and we will get to see that and get to hear that. They'll be checking those facial muscles, the short muscles, long muscles, and you know, so I think there's probably some out there. At least I hope so. I thought I saw a turkey vulture circling today. Have you ever used that old school stuff? When you're looking for victims, you absolutely use that old school stuff. They will find victims. James Tate says, good night. Glad you're here, James. Lori says, what about your study on the dirt? Yes, we did some testing with the bullets. Still have them. Thank you, Gail. Mike, why are some retired LEO on YouTube convinced more are involved? Examples, Ruckus and Cop Packs. Everyone has their own reasons. Do I think that could be possible? Absolutely. But it's also just as possible as a lone wolf. So until we see all the evidence, I really don't know. I don't know all the facts that they know of what has been told to them, what has been shared with them. But everybody has different sources and different opinions. Mary Flynn, thank you. Salty Sleuth says, I'm conflicted about this crime scene. I'm not as conflicted as I once was. Hearing the expert speak of what he saw in those images, because that told him a story, and he testified to a story. Truth exposed. Wasn't one of their socks missing? I believe that's the case. I think there is. See-through. True Crime Web, they claim Abby was undressed at some point, but dressed while attacked. Does this tell us the missing underwear and socks is Abby's? This was proof she had been undressed. I don't, I really couldn't tell you. You know, the ones that, from the clothing I looked at, I can see where certain articles don't appear to be the same of the picture on the bridge. So, but that's in the generations of pictures that I received. Did photoshopping occur? I can't tell you. Don't know. Jacqueline's got to go. Yeah, I'm running a little late tonight, but just trying to get caught up here. But I appreciate everybody being here. All right, guys. Well, I got caught up with chat, and if you have any more questions, just throw them. Send me a text message or email, or put them in comments, and I'll try to get to them. I'm so far behind right now on everything, but I appreciate everybody's support. I want to thank everybody that donated memberships tonight, and all our members out there. And But want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Y'all stay safe out there. If you like this video, share it, give it a thumbs up, and absolutely make sure any and all information that you may have is given to the law enforcement as we move forward. Let's see here. What is the pictures of the white pants leg? That's from where I was. I had drugged Mrs. Steve in the woods that way back when we were doing some testing. But good night, everybody. And y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see y'all soon.